Welcome to Soul Power Trip, the podcast that is your compass for manifesting your dream life. I'm Priscilla, a Jungian life coach with a master's in psychology, and I am your guide through the realms of the unconscious mind. So this has been my life's work, reaching my potential as well as guiding you towards reaching yours. In this podcast, together we cultivate positive habits and gain transformative insight. So fasten your seatbelts, dear listeners, as we embark on this trip of a lifetime, a journey to the very core of your beautiful soul. Welcome to Soul Power Trip. In today's episode, piggybacking off what we discussed last time, I want to discuss more on how Pessimist and Optimist will manifest different realities. They'll literally live two different lives based on what they expect to happen in the future. Pessimists, by definition, will constantly focus on negative outcomes, and they can find themselves in a never-ending loop of stress, unknowingly increasing their cortisol. The cycle is never ending because they continue to be pessimistic, meaning they continue to expect stressful, unfortunate outcomes, which is exactly what ends up happening. Over time, this doesn't just affect their health. Research shows it can also affect our relationships, job performance, and overall life satisfaction. And the opposite happens to optimists, people who constantly focus on positive outcomes. This is fascinating because research has actually shown that regularly thinking of someone you love who loves you can create a powerful and long-lasting effect on the body. And if you really think about it, this research changes the way we can think about our own health and well-being. Because when we generate positive emotions, when we focus on really increasing the positive feelings we feel and allow those positive feelings to dominate our negative thoughts, this is going to result in improved physical health and life outcomes, right? So the important thing is to realize that you have a choice. Every moment offers you the ability to shift your thoughts away from negativity. You choose. So you have the power to generate an upward spiral in your life, in better health, relationships, etc., by focusing on having an optimistic mindset. So let's take a soul power trip to find out how to make your thoughts and feelings work to make your life better instead of worse. So of course, it's not easy to readjust your focus towards positivity instead of negativity. Even the research shows that negative thoughts and feelings are stronger and require us to pay more attention to them than positive thoughts. In fact, we have a negativity bias that dominates our attempt to be positive, right? We are biased towards negativity. This is a biological tendency that starts with our primal brain, and it's not necessarily something we can change, but it's definitely important to understand so that we can kind of control and mediate it. Our mind can be seen as a combination of three brains, and each has a different purpose. One of them is the primal brain or the animal brain. This was the first kind of portion of our brain that we developed. And this is the part of the brain that we share with other mammals, and its purpose is to preserve our survival only. So for survival, the negativity bias enabled our mammal ancestors to scan their environment and swiftly pick up on potential threats, like a lion approaching them or the signs of an upcoming storm, right? This bias towards negativity, towards unpredictability, towards a possible negative outcome was an early warning system, helping them react quickly to survive. And that's why they passed on these genes of having a negativity bias. However, fast forward to present day, and the same negativity bias that once safeguarded our ancestors now tends to fixate on different types of threat. Now, this negativity bias is extremely unhelpful and works against us when we're trying to create a more positive or optimistic life. Instead of predators and natural disasters, our brains are now hypervigilant about potential risks like financial instability, or worse, a potential risk that you completely made up in your head based on an assumption. For example, you assume your friend suddenly hates you because she didn't answer your message for a few days. This is a negativity bias, so you're looking for certain hints that your friend is just not really feeling you anymore, or they secretly don't like you anymore, or you secretly annoy them, right? This is an assumption. It's a potential negative outcome. So now you're going to hyper focus on it, and your brain is going to help you hyper focus on it because it's like, oh my God, a negative possible outcome. Let's obsess. And we need to understand that this is a biological tendency that we can absolutely overcome and make it have less power in our minds. But if we kind of let that animalistic part of our brain kind of run the show, then this is what it's going to lead us to, right? And it's not meant to run the show. It's more meant to be a useful tool for us to support us towards where we want to go, more than it is supposed to be kind of like the master or the one that calls the shots. So I want you to reflect on, what do you think you are naturally, an optimist or a pessimist? I want you to think about your overarching narrative for your life. For example, if I ask you, how's your day been? Would you tell me about the unpleasant parts of it or the good parts? Would you tell me that you were so tired, you got a late start to the day and didn't get to have breakfast? Or would you tell me that you woke up a bit late, but you're grateful that you had the extra rest because you really needed it, and you're glad that you still made it to work on time despite the late start, and you avoided being reprimanded by your boss, right? The undertones of your mental narrative can tell us if you're an optimist or a pessimist. Do you focus on the bad parts or the good parts? The optimist exaggerates the good and minimizes the bad. Pessimists do exactly the opposite. They exaggerate the bad and minimize the good. That's a different, just sort of default or automatic function that your mindset is in. And this is going to affect how you see the world, right? Because it's your mindset. It's literally the sunglasses or the lens through which you perceive the world. Each way of seeing, optimist or pessimist, creates a powerful expectation about the future. These expectations can either help you thrive or limit you. Really, the choice is up to you. So the key to understanding the difference is something called explanatory style, according to psychologists. It's a style in which we explain positive and negative events in our lives, right? These styles are often referred to as the 3 Ps. And this I learned from a book by a psychologist called Dan Tomasulo. He was actually a teacher of mine at Columbia University, and I found this breakdown in his book to be really fascinating because I honestly never thought of myself as a pessimist, but these qualities that I'm about to describe really described my mindset without me even considering myself to be a pessimist. I struggled with depressive thoughts for years, so this sort of pessimistic thinking was really my default. And the problem is that I never even thought about it as bad or as something I should change. I literally just thought it was normal, and I thought it was the most appropriate and realistic reaction to any given circumstance. So, the important aspect to focus on is how you respond to good or bad things in your life. A pessimist responds to setbacks by feeling helpless and out of control. For a long time, I didn't know there was an alternative. I didn't know that if something negative happens in my life, I have a choice whether or not I feel helpless or like my life is out of control. 3 Ps describe how a pessimist reacts to events in their life. The first one is permanence. When something bad happens, they think the feeling will last forever. The second P is pervasive. Pessimist assumes that the negative event will affect all areas of their life and as compromising everything they do, thinking, oh, because I didn't get the job I wanted, I don't want to do anything else. It means I'm a failure across the board. Why should I even keep trying or going to interviews? This is just who I am. I fail and I get rejected, right? It's pervasive. It affects all areas of their life. And the third P is personal. We alone are at fault and feel personally responsible. So now optimists explain the same negative events a different way, neither as pervasive nor permanent, and they don't take it personally. Instead, they view it as a temporary hurdle. A bad thing happens in their life and they see it as an isolated occurrence. They see how it's controllable because even though they can't change what happens, they know they can control how they react and how it affects their day and their life. This upbeat outlook is more than just a nice feeling. The research shows that highly optimistic people also are more immune to depression, have better cardiovascular health, have a lower risk of Alzheimer's. They have greater resilience and coping skills during difficult times. They're more productive, they're more compassionate, and they get better sleep. These are things that I wouldn't necessarily think are related, right? As a former pessimist, I really didn't think that it was because of my pessimism that I was getting bad sleep, or it was because of my pessimism that I was not physically healthy or less productive than, say, an optimist, right? But these are the sneaky little ways that your mindset changes what you physically experience. It's important to note that even when good things happen for a pessimist, they still don't get any benefits that the optimist experiences. This is because positive events are the opposite of the three P's for the pessimist, right? So, opposed to a negative situation, when something good happens, they believe it's because it's temporary, limited to a one off or lucky situation, a random occurrence that will rarely ever happen again because it has nothing to do with them personally. So for pessimists, the good things don't stick, whereas the bad things in life are long lasting with far ranging implications. This difference profoundly influences our expectations of the future, which in turn leads to different life outcomes. So here's an example of a pessimist and an optimist in action. A pessimist, for example, named Samantha, receives job promotion at her workplace. She perceives the promotion as a temporary stroke of luck. She thinks it won't happen again, it's not a permanent change. She attributes it to factors beyond her control. Perhaps she thinks she got the promotion because they were short staffed, or they just didn't want to go through the hiring process with a new employee. So they moved her up. To Samantha, the promotion doesn't have a far reaching impact on her career because she thinks it probably won't happen again, and she doesn't see it as a personal achievement. And I think it's important to note this may seem like a very minimal reaction, right? She's like, oh yeah, I got a promotion, but like it's no big deal. It was probably really just out of luck or timing wise. I don't know if I've done that good of a job, right? This might just seem like a pretty normal thing to say, but in actuality, it's a terrible thing to say about yourself. It's a terrible way to react to something beautiful happening in your life because beautiful things won't come into your life again because you have this attitude of, this is not for me, I don't deserve this, and this isn't the reality that I accept. I don't accept a reality where good things happen for me, right? Because when they do, I reject it. I say, I'm not worthy. I say, it was probably a mistake. On the other hand, Emily, an optimist, reacts in the exact opposite way. When she receives a job promotion, she believes it's a permanent step forward in her career. She sees it as a result of her hard work and dedication, a personal victory that she can take credit for. Emily anticipates more opportunities for advancement in the future, viewing this promotion as a stepping stone for what she wants to create. Now, in some ways, I could understand if someone were to argue that the second example, Emily, is maybe overly confident, right? Or a bit maybe delusional, thinking that she was so deserving of a promotion that she deserves more promotions and that they're just going to keep happening for her because she thinks she is so amazing, right? There's something about someone being so confident that feels a bit selfish or that feels a bit egotistical or arrogant. It's so important for you to overcome that association of being selfish or self-focused or egotistical even with bad. It's not bad because the optimist, the one who believes in herself and has this overconfidence, is going to create a better reality than the one who is hard on themselves and assumes that good things that happen are only just isolated occurrences. They're going to live in what we would consider maybe like an unlucky reality, right? Whereas the optimist lives in what we would consider a lucky reality. And we might look at the optimist and judge her mindset for being self-centered or egotistical, but like, why would she care how we judge her? At the end of the day, she's living a lucky life. She's getting promotions. She's living good. And I'm out here judging her for being egotistical and denying myself any sort of self-focused or real feelings of like sense of accomplishment in myself and saying, something good happened in my life because I did that, right? The pessimist will likely say something good happened in my life because it was just a random stroke of luck. The confidence that you get from that is going to create an expectation for more good things to come. So even though you might judge the person who is so confident in themselves, I urge you to release that limiting belief and work on that limiting belief, because I've seen it so often with clients and even in myself and in society at large. I do think there's a general perception of selflessness being better and selfishness being negative or associated with narcissism. Those are very different realms. Being selfish and narcissistic, they're two different worlds. Really try to rewire your mindset to think that having this sense of almost delusional confidence is not a bad thing. It's actually good and it's super useful for creating the life you want. Now, back to the examples. Imagine a scenario where both Emily and Samantha face a setback. They're working together on a project and they are not meeting expectations and they get negative feedback from superiors. Okay, Samantha, the pessimist, is going to attribute the failure to her lack of skill. Samantha also believes that this negative feedback is going to negatively affect her entire career, right? This is the pervasiveness of the three Ps. And she feels like it's a reflection of her inadequacy as a professional, personal. The negativity from this setback also lingers within her far after the incident has actually occurred. And again, her superiors weren't really necessarily trying to make her feel bad. They probably just wanted a better project. That's like a pretty objective result that they were looking for, and she took it very subjectively. She took it very personally. And this is what happens with this sort of realistic outlook that I think is praised in society because it's important to be logical and realistic and based on facts. And I think that actually kind of limits us in this regard and makes us believe that we are more responsible and certain things that are happening in our lives reflect our personal inadequacy more than they actually do, right? A lot of times it's just not about you. In contrast, the optimist, Emily, sees the project failure as a temporary setback, perhaps due to unforeseen circumstances, right? So it's not permanent. She doesn't let it cast a shadow over her entire career. It's not pervasive and considers it a learning experience, focusing on areas for improvement rather than seeing it as a personal failure. She's just saying, there are some skills I need to work on. Glad I know that I need to grow in that area. She's not adding to that self-deprecating beliefs about how she's never smart enough or how she's never been able to get good feedback or whatever the case is. So the core difference between the optimist and the pessimist is how they think good and bad events will impact their future. So now that you know that your belief and expectations about what's going to happen in the future directly influences the outcome, now let's explore a way of developing a more positive outlook. The challenge of shifting your thoughts is exciting because the harder it is now, the easier it is going to be later. So, to cultivate positive feelings on a regular basis, the book I mentioned earlier recommends that you engage with a compassionate side of yourself in dialogue when you're in a negative place. This is a method that I love because I'm huge on self-compassion. I actually have a self-compassion workbook and I offer a free exercise from that workbook that you can find on my link tree or in the episode description. So cultivating self-compassion has single-handedly changed my relationship with myself. And for you, this compassion itself will be a big game changer for cultivating a positive outlook. Being self-compassionate means you can forgive yourself and you believe that you are strong and you are capable. And overall, I think what's really important about self-compassion is that it means that you can recognize that hardships are part of the human experience and are rarely personal. You can cultivate the skill of being more compassionate with yourself either by using my workbook. I also recommend that you read the book on self-compassion by Kristen Neff. She's a psychologist and researcher who created a self-compassion assessment. And you can also easily increase self-compassion by seeking out activities that are intentional acts of self-love. This is a great way to increase your self-compassion. Another tip for becoming an optimist is the fascinating concept known as the 3-to-1 positivity bias. It's 3:1 positivity bias. And this idea suggests that in order to foster a more positive and optimistic life, we should strive to create 3 positive thoughts or experiences for every 1 negative encounter or thought. By consciously focusing on the positive aspects of our lives and maintaining a ratio of at least 3 positives to 1 negative, we can gradually shift our mindset towards greater happiness and well-being. Here are 10 different ways to cultivate positive thoughts and experiences on a daily basis to easily apply the 3-to-1 positivity ratio in your life. Number 1 is gratitude. Reflect on 3 things that you're grateful for every day. This automatically increases positive feelings, whether you think about a supportive friend, a beautiful sunset, or a simple act of kindness, such as somebody opening the door for you at Starbucks. If you just take a minute to sit there and be like, wow, that makes me feel good. That was really nice. Boom. You've already increased the positivity you've felt in that day. And living a positive, lucky life is all about small moments of positivity that add up to create a positive life. This is why these small things are so important, because it's not just doing it once that's going to make a difference, but doing it over and over creates a habit, and byproduct is going to reflect in your reality. The second way that you can increase positive feelings in your daily life is by celebrating your accomplishments and achievements, even the small ones. Think about the progress you've made in your personal or professional life. Personally, I don't really like cooking and I find it kind of difficult to resist the urge to order takeout all the time. And so when I cook, it's kind of like a mini accomplishment for me. And when I'm sitting there eating my dinner, I say, thanks, Priscilla. This is great. Thank you for dinner. Because technically, if I were serving it to someone, they'd probably say that. So it's nice to hear it from myself. It's nice to know that I acknowledge and appreciate myself. Number 3 is acts of kindness. This is when you can recall instances where you or others have shown kindness, generosity, or compassion. Just the act of remembering a positive moment gives you the benefits of the positivity bias. Number 4 is thinking about your future goals. Visualize your aspirations and the steps you've taken to achieve them. Feeling that hope for the future can make a big difference in creating this optimistic mindset. Number 5 is positive affirmations. So you can satisfy the 3-to-1 positivity bias just by repeating 3 positive affirmations. For example, you can say, I am capable, I am becoming more confident every day, I am resilient, I am deserving of happiness, to boost your self-confidence. Number 6 is joyful moments. Remember and savor moments that brought you joy, laughter, or contentment. There's actually a whole realm of psychology and a lot of research that's gone into the power of quote unquote savoring a moment. And there's a great TED talk on this if you want to look it up. But think about when you're savoring a dessert and you're like, wow, the hint of caramel and the fudge bites with a tangy, citrusy taste, right? That'd be a crazy dessert. But you notice the details when you're savoring something. And I want you to think about applying this to positive moments in your life, right? Remember what you felt leading up to it. Remember what you looked like, what you were wearing, what you smelled, what you felt, what you learned, and what made you smile. These are ways to savor the moment and increase positivity. Number 7 is acts of self-care. Acknowledge and appreciate the effort you put into self-care. So whether it's exercising, meditating, or spending quality time with loved ones, these might be things that you already do, so just take a minute to acknowledge and appreciate yourself for giving yourself some love. I know Mel Robbins does a high five in the mirror every morning, and I think this is a great way to show appreciation for yourself. Even if you exercise all the time, just take 1 minute in the mirror after you're done from the workout and be like, thank you for doing this, even on days that it was really hard to get out of the house, right? I feel good. I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I moved my body. Thanks. That, even though it seems so small, it builds to create a new perspective, a new way to see your reality, which in turn is going to create a new reality. Number 8 is small pleasures. Take notice of little things that bring you joy, like a warm cup of tea, a good book, or a pleasant stroll in nature, right? There are certain things that you definitely love to do that you don't give yourself the joy of enjoying all the time. For example, I love getting into my bed at night, especially when it's all nice and tidy. So I make my bed in the morning so that I can really savor that moment and let the emotion just consume me of like, wow, I love how comfortable my bed is. I love that I get to sleep in a nice, comfy, beautiful bed. That in itself, it's doing something to move you towards the life that you want to live. So why not? Number 9 is remembering positive feedback. Anytime you got a compliment or someone said something nice about you, this reinforces your self-worth. So it's important to remember those nice things that have been said to you. I've actually recommended to clients to create a compliments jar with all the beautiful things that other people have said to them so that they can look through it when they're not feeling so great. And the last tip for positive experiences is reflecting on lessons learned. So you can view your challenges or setbacks in life as opportunities for growth and learning. Reflecting on these valuable lessons increases your feelings of, gratitude and appreciation for yourself. And it's kind of like this cup, right? And that you've been filling this cup with negative thoughts and pessimistic thoughts and self-deprecating thoughts, right? Every time you have a negative thought, you fill it up with more water, okay? If throughout the day you make the habit, you force yourself to start filling more positive water in the positivity cup, and you really make an effort to increase the dose of positivity in your daily life, think about the accumulation of that cup over an extended period of time. You're going to have more positive water than negative water in your life. And that means that when you look up and look around at your life, that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be more positivity than negativity, versus the pessimistic mindset is feeding the negativity, and day by day, they're going to end up with more negativity water in the cups around them, and their life is going to reflect that. Right, so that is it for today's episode. I hope you learned a bit about why we focus on negative occurrences to some extent. A pessimistic mind is kind of natural in that way, as we discussed the negativity bias and our primal brain. And I know that although shifting your focus is not easy, the alternative is costing you much more. Today, you also learned the difference between pessimist and optimist and realize why it's so important to cultivate positivity. Now you know that simply by thinking about past gratitude, future hopeful expectations, and being more intentionally mindful, the upward spiral towards optimism begins on its own. If you put in a little bit of effort to make different choices about how you think about your past and present, you are cultivating the habit of positivity. This helps you set better intentions for yourself about what's about to come in the future, and in turn sets you up for a better and more fulfilling life. In the next episode, we are going to talk about the psychological phenomena of repetition compulsion, which is the idea that you have an urge and a strong desire to repeat your parents' behaviors, whether they were good or bad. So we're going to learn a little bit about that concept and how to recognize it in your life and how to correct it. Also, I have a live Q&A on YouTube every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I think it would be so wonderful if you came because it's literally free therapy. You can come in and ask me anything you want. And it's a great community and it's a great place to learn more about yourself and to honestly see that you are not alone in this process. Lastly, Soul Power Trip is now becoming a weekly podcast. Instead of bi-weekly, you can now expect a new episode drop every single Tuesday. So I am so happy you were listening today. I am so happy you're here, and I really hope that you gained some transformative insight that you can apply to your daily life because you deserve to live your best life. I truly believe that. Bye for now.